Yeah, and I've got a really tough gig because I am sure not many of you have got excited about the subject of money, and particularly not at 3:20 on a day when you've had so many fascinating conversations already. But I will do my best to make this as interactive and engaging as I possibly can. So, as Sophie said, my name's Tara. I am the co-founder of a company called Best Intentions, and we are on a mission to help create a world where financial well-being is a priority for everyone. And one of the main ways we believe that will be possible is by talking about money. We think that the key to understanding money is by talking about it. And so that is what I want us to do today. Before I dive in, I'm going to start with a poll, which I think Sophie is going to very kindly help me with, hopefully. And that should pop up in just a second. And just to get an idea of what your current situation, what people's current situations are, and it's totally anonymous, but we're going to be talking about money, we're going to be talking about financial well-being. Here are some different scenarios. So have you got some credit card debt? Do you spend most of what you earn each month? Do you save consistently? Have you started investing? Do you save a pretty healthy amount of your salary into a pension each month? Just be really interesting to see where everyone's at today, so we know where to focus the attention and where we can really get the most benefit for this time for you even. Good. Well, there's quite a few of you in the I save consistently each month, which is great to see, as well as spend what you earn. Sometimes it's just unavoidable, particularly I live in London. It's a very expensive place to live and socialise, because we're allowed to do that again now. But also people with credit card debt, also, totally fair enough. There's good debt and bad debt. Often credit card debts can be really helpful if you pay them off in full each month, but we want to be making sure that we're not racking up a lot of interest there. And hats off to the people who are saving more than 10% into their pension, because that is awesome. Right, I'm actually going to try and take a screenshot of that so that we can come back to that later. Fabulous. Cool. So, diving into, oh God, I've got too many things on my screen. There we go. What are we going to cover today? So, first of all, I'm going to talk to you about why financial well-being matters. Why should you care about it? What does it what's the problem, and why are we talking about it? Then what it is, because it's probably a term that we've invented and actually doesn't really mean a huge amount just by looking at it. I had a friend once who said to me, I kept referring to financial fitness, and she was like, it just doesn't make sense. What are you talking about? So anyway, we'll talk about what it is and our definition of it. Then relevant to this audience, I think, is the role of companies in helping support people's financial well-being, and whether or not companies really should be taking a role in this. And then last, but by no means least, and this is where I hope you get the most amount of value, is I'm going to share some of the best kept secrets in personal finance, things that you can take away and act on today. So make sure you stick around for those. So, why does it matter? Well, there are some really scary statistics that I'm about to share with you. And I think it really does prove that as a society, as employers, and as individuals, we have a big problem on our hands. So 94% of UK employees have money worries. That is the best part of everybody, really. I mean, that means that every company, the majority of the people who work there have money worries. And worry leads to stress and anxiety, which leads to mental health issues. And until people address this root cause, yes, you can manage stress, and yes, you can put in place mechanisms to support yourself when you're feeling stressed and anxious, but you'll never be truly lifted of that until you figure out what the root cause is. And quite a lot of the time, that root cause is money related. So 72% of people with mental health issues say that their mental health problems weaken their financial situation. But even more people, 86% of people, say that financial problems made their mental health worse. This is a problem that we have to take seriously. And as employers, if your employees, if people are coming to work each day worrying about money, they are going to be distracted, they're going to be ineffective, and worst case, they will actually be absent because they won't be able to face coming to work. So this is why we think it's so important that financial well-being comes to the forefront. It is the last taboo. Money problems are the final taboo. People will talk about sex before they talk about money. They will talk about mental health before they talk about money. We have to combat that now. So I said I'll explain what financial well-being is, and I don't actually think of it as a single point of achievement. There isn't sort of the financial well-being panacea that once you're there and you've achieved it, all the boxes are ticked and it's happy days. It's a process, and actually I like to think of it as more like a staircase that you're climbing up all the time. But you will have covered today quite a lot of different aspects of well-being, and ones that are a little bit more familiar. So you've got physical well-being, staying fit and healthy. You've got mental well-being, which is where most of the narrative is around these days when it comes to well-being, making sure that your mind is clear, that you have time to yourself, that you relax, that you manage your stress levels, and so on. We're also talking a lot about environmental well-being, which is I think brilliant. I'm a massive advocate for more sustainable living, and if we can look after the planet that we inhabit, then all the better. But that little one at the end, the financial well-being, that's something that we are yet to pick up the microphone on, and that's what I want to talk about. So as I said, financial well-being, it's a process, it's a journey, it's something that you work towards, and it's sort of like this staircase, which starts with living within your means. So finding a way to not spend more than you earn, making sure that you're not living a lifestyle that's outside of what you can afford. The next thing is paying off bad debt. So that's what I was referring to at the start. There's good debt, things like a student loan, things even maybe like borrowing money to buy a car, which allows you to commute to work to then earn money. That is borrowing money that will allow you to benefit yourself in future. There are other things like store cards, typically a lot of credit card debt that is referred to as bad debt because you're not getting any future value from borrowing that money, but it is costing you a lot. And so making sure we prioritize paying off that debt is critical. Then we have the emergency fund, the rainy day fund, and it's scary how many adults there are in the UK who don't have that cushion to break their fall when shit hits the fan. Sorry, I'm not allowed to swear. But we saw it last year when COVID hit and a lot of people went on furlough or made redundant or lost their businesses. It was a really tough time because people haven't been prioritizing that emergency fund. We say you really want to have between 3 and 6 months of expenses saved up so that you can buy yourself some time if bad things happen and you need to buy yourself that time. So those are the sort of fundamentals. And then we move into thinking about the long term, your pension. I'm going to come on to this later on, but nobody else is going to look after you in retirement. You have to do it. And it might seem like a long way away. It might seem completely unrelatable, but by the time you get there, it'll be too late to do anything about it. And so we have to start thinking about that today. And the last stage of the financial well-being journey is investing. And so putting your money to work so that it can work for you and earn you more money in future. And that is the dream, right? If you can just go to bed and know that your money is working for you and earning itself more money, which can earn itself more money, then I think we've hit the jackpot. So that is financial well-being. It is the journey. It is everything combined. And even if you are already investing, there are more things that you can learn. There's more things that you can do to improve that financial well-being position. So hopefully that's clear. And that's very much an individual lens. I was talking specifically to all of you about your financial well-being, and that's my financial well-being as well. But should companies have a role in this? And you may all have differing opinions, and would love to hear what those are in the chat. I'm going to pull the chat up so I can see it in case things are coming through. you might have different opinions. So one school of thought is that actually people don't want their employers knowing lots of stuff about their personal finances because they don't want it to reflect badly. We shouldn't have to live in a nanny state where companies, have too much say in what we should be saving, what we should be doing with our money, and let people have their own ownership over their financial choices, because there really isn't a right way either. And, from a business perspective, a generation ago, companies had a huge amount of responsibility for people's long-term financial health because of the final salary pension schemes. They've relieved themselves of that stress now and that responsibility. And they're saying, business is business. We're paying these people a salary. Why would we have to put more money into them in future? They should make up their own minds with what they do with their money. But, and I think this is a really important point, as I said, prior generations, my parents' generation, grandparents' generation, they were looked after by companies and the government. So actually our education system, what we learn at school and what we learn at home from our families isn't set up to help people with, gain the tools and knowledge that they need to look after their money themselves. And we see this time and time again. I used to volunteer for a financial education charity, and the number of times, a financial education charity that was focused on 8 to 18-year-olds, okay, so children, and a lot of the time very young children. And the number of times we'd get to the end of the session and the school teachers would say, "Oh my God, that was so useful." This is content that we created for children, and the adult teachers are walking away going, "Wow, that was helpful." People don't know this stuff. And I think the most important thing is that people are on a tightrope. Everything is a balancing act. You're trying to put one foot in front of the other. You're trying to balance all of the things that are going on, everything that has been talked about in prior sessions, trying to manage burnout, trying to, deal with work and the stresses of life. And I think financial health is kind of like, this guy wandering along his tightrope, trying to balance everything that's going on. It's like the wind. You can't see it. And you might be 3/4 of the way along your balancing act of life. And then all of a sudden it comes out of nowhere and it throws you off balance. Because actually, when you need your financial health most, it's when it's too late to do anything about it. And by that stage, by the time you get hit by that gust of wind dangling above that canyon, it's definitely too late to do anything about it. So yes, business is business, and you don't necessarily, as a company, have to take on a financial liability to these people to help them with their financial well-being. But I think as companies, we owe it to our staff to help provide them the tools and resources that they need to be able to look after themselves. And not least, if they are looking after themselves better in every aspect, but definitely with their money, then they're going to be more effective employees. They're going to be able to work more productively. They're going to be less distracted. It's as simple as that. So yes, I personally believe that companies should play a role in helping support their employees' financial well-being because of legacy, but also because it will be more effective for them today. So what can companies realistically do? Well, I think there are broadly 3 sort of categories of things. The first is helping promote the concept of talking about money being beneficial. And I'm not saying spending lots of money on anything. I mean, there are things that you can spend money on as employers, and we'll come on to that in a second. But, as Dawn was saying, mental health newsletter going around each month, adding in, there's heaps of free financial resources out there, or just suggesting things like, maybe people might want to talk to their loved ones or family, friends about money each month. Promoting those good habits and letting people self-serve is going to be beneficial. So creating that environment and instigating good behaviors in your employees is going to be really helpful. The next thing is access to resources, and that's taking it one step further on. There are lots of providers of workshops and education resources, and actually within your goodie bags we've given you a link, I think it's a link, to get your hands on a high impact financial well-being workshop for your employees if you want to do that, because that's something that we offer, but there's loads of other options. For example, I know that a lot of financial advisors will come and for free do talks to their a company's workforce, because there may be a couple of people in there who might be in need of financial advice, and so that's why they do it, but they'll happily come and talk to the whole company for free, just in case that they get one customer out of it. So that's definitely an option as well. But a lot of companies are starting to do this. I can see a few comments coming in that companies holding regular money management workshops, and that's amazing. It's so great to see. As Sophie said at the start, I mean, it seems to be the trend at the moment, and the number of times we're getting contacted by companies saying we need to do more in financial well-being, it's just music to our ears. So it's brilliant to see that companies are taking this seriously and putting resources to work. The third area is pensions, and that might seem like an obvious one, particularly to those of you in HR, because you will almost certainly have a pension scheme that's available to your companies. I mean, almost certainly, you definitely will have, because it's the law. But let's not kid ourselves that the base level of pension contributions is actually going to solve everyone's problems, and I'm going to come on to some numbers around this in just a second. But there is a bit of a policy that came in called auto enrollment, which means that every company has to offer a pension that has effectively a 5% contribution from the employee and a 3% contribution from the employer. That's 8%. And actually, a lot of the time, feedback would suggest that people think, oh, well, I've got a company pension, so I'm fine. I don't have to do anything else. But let's just have a little reality check on that, because, is that 8% enough? Well, let's take Maria. She's 30 years old. She earns £42,000 a year and wants to stop working when she's 70. So she's starting to save into her pension at 30 years old. If she contributes 8% of her salary a year, so that auto-enrollment minimum, she's going to have sort of just over 26k a year in retirement, which, if she's been used to earning 40, and that might grow with inflation and or pay rises over time, she might feel a bit disappointed to end up having only 26k a year in retirement. If she puts in 10%, that goes up to 30, but she'd need to put in a full 15% of her salary to get somewhere near the £42,000 that she's currently earning. 15%. I mean, that's just under double the auto-enrollment minimum contribution that people might be sitting there thinking, oh, well, I contribute into a pension, so I'm fine. And I think that's really, really important for us to remember, and as companies to articulate. There are a lot of companies out there, yours might be one of them, that offers a more generous pension arrangement than auto-enrollment minimum, which definitely does help. But again, communicating with your employees around what their expectations are and what the reality is so important. So there are 4 things that I wanted to highlight that I think employers can do around pensions to help their employees out a little bit when it comes to probably one of the least interesting topics that there is to talk to employees about. So Platform Perfect, that's, there are a lot of pension providers out there, a lot of platform providers. Find one that doesn't send employees and their pension members those horrible, lengthy, boring, in the post pension statements each year that will almost certainly get piled up and then chucked away. There are some great providers that have easy to use apps that make it super easy for you to see what you're saving, how much it could be in future, what the different investment options are, and make it really interactive and almost gamified. The other thing about the platforms is fees, and the impact of slightly higher fees in, when compounded over the 30-40 years that they will be saving is huge. So if they are more expensive than the others, they're going to have to really justify it. The second thing I've highlighted there is matchy, and that is, if you are able to, as a company, set up a matching arrangement so that you say, well, if the employee adds an extra % of salary contributions each month, that you will match that. And so they're getting added incentives to increase their own pension contributions. The third thing is escalation education, and that is similar to what I just said, but actually it's more around encouraging people to up their pension contributions at the same time as something like a pay rise. So net at the end of the month, they're not going to see less money come in, because that could be quite a hard thing for people to deal with. A lot of the time people are dealing with very tight budgets, and to say, oh, well, can you just put in an extra £100 a month into this pension that you're not going to be able to access for another 30 years might not work. But if they have had a pay rise, they could maybe afford to put some of that pay rise or some of that bonus into their pension. That could be really powerful over the years. And the fourth thing is really trying to encourage those youngsters not to opt out. The beauty of compounding is brought out through time, and those early years count for so much. So even if it's a small amount that they're putting in, trying to communicate the benefit of compounding to them and encouraging them not to opt out, even if they feel like they would far rather have that money to do whatever they're doing, outside of work. So trying to provide some education around that is really important. I've just seen a question. So I should start saving and investing maybe when I turn 70, I will be a millionaire. Yeah, well, and it's actually, I've been criticized for calling, fastest way to become a millionaire is saving into your pension. I've been criticized for that because it sounds like a scam, but genuinely it's true. With the investment returns that you earn, plus the free money that you're getting by your employer having to put money in for you and contributing before tax, so the government effectively puts money in for you as well, it is the quickest route, in my opinion, or the easiest route perhaps, to becoming a millionaire. Yeah, don't listen to anyone who says just put your money in Bitcoin. They will have obviously had a really tough time of it recently. Wonderful. So yeah, so that's pensions. Before I move on from pensions though, one thing I do want to say is I've got a general rule of thumb. So if you're thinking about your own pension and how much you should be putting in, half the age you start is how much you should be contributing as a percentage of your salary. So if you start at 30, you'll probably be wanting to put in around 15%. If you start at 20, it's 10%. And obviously those numbers start to get very, very big if you're over 30. But, you can start thinking about that, particularly for the younger people in the audience. It really starts to hurt if you leave it later. Because you miss out on all of that compounding. So that was everything about companies, and it is a whistle-stop tour, but as I said, I do think companies can play a huge role in helping people get educated on this stuff. And to prove how simple some of the lessons are, I'm going to share, as I said at the start, some of the best kept secrets in personal finance, things that you can put to work, but also just so you can see how simple it is to get some really quick wins that help people enormously when it comes to managing their money. The first thing, and this might take a bit of explanation, but you don't need to be rich to be wealthy. To be wealthy, you need to spend less than you earn. It doesn't matter how much you earn. You can earn £10 million a year. If you spend £11 million a year, you're not wealthy. You're sort of rich in terms of the amount that you earn. But you see it with celebrities all the time. You see it with people who win the lottery. They get all of this money, but they spend so much that they end up with nothing. Spend on what matters to you. No more of this comparison stuff. Oh, she's got a nice, new dress, or he's got a nice new car. Sorry to play on some gender stereotypes. But actually it's, well, particularly with these things, phones, looking at Instagram, looking at social media, and you can start feeling like you need to keep up with the Joneses, that, people have got nicer stuff going on, better holidays, doing fancier gym classes, whatever it is. If that doesn't matter to you, don't spend your money on it. There's far more effective ways to spend your money than on stuff that you ultimately don't really care about. And that brings me on to the last point of this. The best way to be wealthy is by getting your money working for you to build your wealth. And that is summed up in this little tweet that I did a couple of weeks ago. I think, when was that, March? So you imagine three very similar people. The dollar tongue man who spends all of his money every month, the sort of serene, oh well, I do save money, person who saves £100 a month but saves it in cash, and the cool dude with the sunnies who invests £100 a month, so is saving obviously the same amount but is putting that to work in an investment account. In 10 years time, dollar tongue guy has got nothing because he spent it all. Serene, happy, I save money person has got £11,200, and the cool dude in the glasses who's invested has got £15,600. So he's got that extra money for doing absolutely nothing else except putting that money to work for him to build his wealth. And that's not by working harder, it's not by putting more hours in, it's not by having 5 side hustles and overtime every weekend. It's by being smart with the money that you do have. And that is the sort of second top secret. You can turn £1 into £5,000. Not literally. You can turn £1 a day into £5,000 in 10 years if you invest. And it's kind of like magic, because you sort of don't see it happening at first. So one day, you can see this chart, one day you've got £1, right? That's not very much. After a year, that's sort of £365, and the investment returns that you'll have earned on that is small. Okay, it's you're not going to notice it, but after 5 years you start seeing that investment return being a bigger portion. That dark green layer, that's the investment returns, that's the money that you've got for free. And then after 10 years, that is such a big chunk. And if that's assuming a sort of level of investment returns that's sort of kind of equity markets, nothing too fancy, nothing particularly risky, pretty safe investment if you're doing it over the long term. I personally can't afford to miss out on that amount of free money over that time frame. So that is my second best kept secret in personal finance, is just the power of investing. And then the last one is, there is such a thing as free money. I mean, it's mental how much free money is out there for us to grab, whether it's cash back on things that we were going to buy anyway, whether it's utility companies or bank account providers who will literally pay us to become their customer. I switched, I think it was internet, and I got a £50 Amazon voucher. I mean, it doesn't bother me who's my internet provider is. They're all as rubbish as each other. But if one's going to pay me £50 to do it, then I'm happy. And this is actually something that we cover at length in our latest online course, Couch to 1K, 6 modules, and it goes through everything that you could possibly think of to get, find £1,000 that you never knew you had, effectively kickstart your money, and free up some extra cash so that you can then do things like start investing or go on that dream holiday that you've always wanted, or things that you haven't been able to afford to do. We want to help you find that extra cash and put that money to work. But as I said, 6 modules worth of stuff. There's a few things that I've given you, like switching bank accounts, switching electricity providers, and cashback. But if you're interested in the rest, then you can find it all on our website. I think you'll have our details afterwards, or info in the goodie bags. So really, just to sum up, and before I sum up, I'm going to ask the question again. So Sophie is going to pull up the poll that we did earlier, and hopefully,
yes,
there we go. So what action are you going to take after this talk? I've been talking for about half an hour now, which is unbelievable. I should probably shut up. Are you going to take any action? Are you going to start paying off debts? Are you going to up the amount you save each month? Are you going to start investing, increase your pension contributions? Or are you going to do absolutely nothing because you're not interested, or you're already doing it all, which is amazing? Brilliant. Well, let's start investing. I mean, and that's what, just to give you a bit more insight into sort of best intentions and what we do, it's really about helping people get started investing with confidence. And we really want to make sure people realize that it's something that's accessible to everybody, that it's not hard, it's not complex, it's not just for posh rich men who wander around with briefcases in the city. It's for everyone. You can access it at a very low cost, at a very low amount of money, as little as £5 initially. So it's definitely something that we'd love to get everyone interested in and doing for themselves. Start paying off your debts, wonderful, and up the amount you save each month. Well, as I said, Couch to 1K has been designed specifically to help people free up a little bit of extra cash and find money they never knew they had. So if you want any help, then do let us know. Brilliant. Well, the last thing I was going to say, all you need to know, maybe I should have just said this rather than rambling on for half an hour, but financial well-being is an essential part of your overall well-being. There is no questions about it. Don't know why no one talks about it. Don't know why it's still such a taboo, but let's hope that this has made an impact on that. The problem only gets bigger with time. So if you think you individually, or as a collective in your company, if you think you've got an issue, it's not going to go away by burying your head in the sand. You have to do something about it, and the problem only gets bigger with age. And then from a company's perspective, companies can play a huge role in supporting employees with their financial health, and that will benefit them hugely, but also you as an employer to have a more productive workforce. And I just think that is a no-brainer, win-win all round. So that's it. You can find us rabbiting on, myself and Mel, co-founders, on Instagram, LinkedIn, all the various social channels if you're interested. And as I said, there's some stuff in the goodie bags, which as companies you might find useful, or as individuals. Thank you very much. And thank you, Sophie and Adam, for inviting me. It's been brilliant.
Thank you. Oh, it's nice for somebody to thank Adam as well, because I do feel like where I'm the one on camera, people talk to me, so it's nice. Now we'll get Adam up for some kudos. So Cheyenne has just dropped all of your links into the chat as well, so please do go and check out all of Tara's information there. And like we said, I know we keep saying this, but there will be a digital goodie bag going out afterwards that's got some information and some bits and pieces in it as well from Tara. Tara, we have found this so interesting. I love the fact that it's actually all of our team that have been in the chat writing things, Cheyenne and Arishi, who I know they won't mind me saying, but they're both in their early 20s and they're really at the start of all this journey. And I think it really kind of opened their eyes and maybe potentially scared some people in the audience today as well. But I love the way that you break it all down and just make it kind of understandable, and the way that you share about investing, it just makes it feel accessible to more people, I think. So I think everybody's found that really useful. Adam, did you have a question or anything, or do you?
I was just going to kind of reiterate like how good it is to hear this stuff being said. Again, I'd like hearing things about your pension and starting early. partly makes me think, yeah, I should do even more of that. And I think this might be one of those quotes that's misattributed to Einstein, but I've heard it said that Einstein said that compound growth is the seventh wonder of the world, or the eighth wonder of the world. However many there are. Like, I would love to see that tweet that you had with the person who spends all their money, the person who saves £100 a month, and the person who invests it. I'd love to see what that would look like after not just 10 years, but 20 years and 30 years. And like, when I've seen the graphs of like, oh, it goes up a bit and it goes up a bit. But then as time goes on, like the graph gets steeper and the amount that you have just goes through the roof. And it's that the power of that time aspect, that in the first few years, not much happens, but over time it grows. And then the amount that it grows by grows. Yes, like so powerful. Seeing that stuff, and it's so like good to hear this being talked about openly, and being talked about like employers taking on some responsibility for, yeah, even just encouraging people to put more money into their pensions, and encouraging people to get,
and that is the
under control.
The benefit of a pension is exactly that compounding thing, because you're starting super young and you can't touch it for years and years, but it's so hard to communicate that sort of concept of exponential growth and the value of it to someone who's 21 years old and really wants to spend that money on going on their holiday that summer. But yeah, you're right, as soon as you get across the power of it and see those graphs, it's staggering. I've put this background on behind me because this is where I want my backdrop to be this in 20 years time, when compound growth has helped me get a lovely cushy retirement. But actually the reality is it's just loads of my household belongings behind me, because I'm getting some very expensive building work done, which is not particularly financially healthy, but I'll leave you with that.